Hey everyone, it's Sammy from Push Square, and in today's video I wanted to touch upon a topic that I've been thinking about for a little while now, and this is the idea what publishers are referring to as live games. Now I say live games, but you probably wonder what I mean, and I'm talking about titles like Destiny and Overwatch, which kind of live on beyond the usual life cycle of a new game. So if we look back at how the video game model used to be, and we take a game like, I don't know, so let's say God of War for example. So the original God of War was announced, it got a bunch of preview coverage and trailers and stuff prior to release. It released, people played it, they traded it in, the discounts maybe rolled in, and then, you know, God of War kind of, its life cycle is over at that point, and the team that made God of War goes on to make God of War 2, and the cycle starts afresh. So that's how games used to be, but that's changing, and we're seeing it with the likes of those games that I mentioned earlier, Overwatch and Destiny. So if you take Overwatch for example, Overwatch released, and since its release it's had a ton of free big updates. You know, it had the kind of Olympics event, it had a Halloween event, a Christmas event, and most recently the Chinese New Year event. And in conjunction with that, Blizzard's been adding new maps, been adding new heroes, and all of this is to kind of service a growing and evolving game, a game which wants you to keep playing it daily, weekly, whatever, as long as you're coming back and, you know, keeping the kind of player base active, then Blizzard's happy. You're probably buying loot boxes or whatever, there's a consistent revenue stream there, and the game is constantly getting better and bigger as well. So that's where games are moving towards, or certainly these live games, which Ubisoft talked about a lot in its investors meeting overnight. Now it actually talked about how it had cancelled a more traditional kind of game in order to better service its live games. And if you look at Ubisoft's portfolio, there's quite a few games that it's consistently updating. It's got the likes of The Crew, The Division, Rainbow Six Siege. I think that's it for them at the moment, but you know, it clearly sees this as an area that it wants to continue investing in, and it wants to keep making more of these kind of live games and supporting them for a long period of time. But my question to you is that what you want? Do you want games to live on for a long period, or do you want more traditional games that you can play, complete, see them through, trade them in, and move on to something new? From my perspective, I've always looked at games, and this might sound negative, but I don't mean it negative, but I've always looked at games as kind of a disposable kind of entertainment medium. I enjoy playing a game and then I enjoy moving on to something else. I like having that variety of new experiences constantly, but my circumstances are quite unique in that I'm a reviewer, and I'm almost required or obligated to be playing new games all the time to make sure that I can have an opinion on what's going on in the industry, to make sure that I can cover these games the best way that I can. So I've always been that type of gamer that plays something and then instantly moves on and never looks back. But a lot of you, maybe you only buy a few games a year, maybe you only buy 2 or 3 games a year, and in that instance maybe you'd prefer this idea of those games that you're buying and playing living on for much longer and constantly being supported and growing and getting more content. I think it's an interesting discussion because there are so many of these live games now, and there's going to be more. You know, Activision's talking about Destiny 2 now, Ubisoft's talking about how it wants to make more of these games, EA is probably going to jump into this market at some point. I'm just quickly trying to search through in my brain and think about if EA is doing any of these games. I mean, I guess stuff like FIFA and Madden with the Ultimate Team and stuff like that, that's already kind of tipping its toe in that kind of stuff, isn't it, already? So yeah, and I mean, Battlefield's constantly evolving and updating as well, so technically yes they are. And even Call of Duty, while I wouldn't consider it one of these live games just yet, you know, the constant year-long season pass model and stuff does show how popular this kind of method's become. My question is as well, though, how many of these games can the industry actually support? You've got the likes of Overwatch and Destiny, right? And those are 2 of the most popular games around at the moment. But realistically, how many of those can one person play? Like, if I feel like people are going to pick one or two of their favourites. Let's say it's Overwatch and The Crew. You're not going to probably want to get involved in The Division and Rainbow Six Siege and Destiny as well if you've picked the two that you're going to play, because there's, a limited amount of time that you can put into these games, right? So I feel like we're in a period right now where every publisher is jumping on a bandwagon. Everyone's trying to create the next Overwatch or Destiny and have that hit game that lives on for years on end. But I feel like, much like with every game adding multiplayer in the PS3 generation, I feel like this bubble's probably going to burst as well. You look at the MMO space, there's World of Warcraft, which is very popular, but not many games have managed to capture that level of popularity. And there's a reason why there aren't as many MMOs now as there used to be, because that bubble burst as well. And I do wonder whether this live games bubble is going to burst once all publishers realise that people just don't have the time to keep going back to all of these games, and the effort in updating them isn't worth it. Having said that, maybe the likes of The Crew, I can't imagine there are a massive number of people playing The Crew at the moment, but maybe that community of players, while small, is very dedicating and it's buying all of the content, and that makes it a profitable model for Ubisoft. It could well be that a game doesn't need an Overwatch or Destiny scale audience, it just needs a small and dedicated community, and in that case it may turn out to be a very successful model for the publishers, even if they're not kind of the industry leaders in their particular genre. We'll have to wait and see, but what's clear is that more publishers are going down this live games route, and it's going to be interesting to see how all of that shakes out. But I want to hear your opinions. What are your thoughts on live games? Are there any live games at the moment that you're playing regularly? Do you constantly hop on Destiny or Overwatch to see the new updates and see what's going on in those games? Are you like me, where you play a game for a period of time and then move on in order to see something new? Do you wish publishers would kind of ditch this idea of live games and just get back to the traditional model, bringing out new, exciting, interesting experiences that you can play and move on from after you've completed them? Let me know in the comments section below. I do think it's an interesting topic. I hope I've done a good job explaining what I mean by live games and how it differs from kind of the traditional game release cycle that we're all used to. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. As always, a quick update on the computer issues. They do seem to be fixed at this point, but I said that last time, didn't I? And then I had to reinstall everything, so we'll see. I should be back to normal now though. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.